It all began with a modest 25% duty on Chinese steel in 2018, the first brick in a trade wall that would rise inexorably over the next 7 years. Every announcement from the White House triggered fresh alarms on Wall Street. In April 2025, a 10% base tariff on all imports took effect, and a month later, the rate on China alone rocketed to 145%. Donald Trump's message was blunt: make it here or pay, and when he threatened an additional 50% on European goods, it was clear protectionism had leapt from tactic to doctrine. For Amazon, the hit was a direct whip crack. More than half its top sellers depend on Chinese factories. Chargers that once cost $10 jumped to $24, toys from $15 to $37, kitchen gadgets nearly tripled. With each hike, Amazon's pricing algorithm spun frantically to absorb the blow without scaring off prime customers. Internal dashboards flashed red bars where green margins used to be. To keep consumer trust from cratering, the company drafted a radical transparency plan. List, line by line, how much of each item's price came from the new taxes. One private call from Trump to Jeff Bezos killed the idea on the spot, according to 2 witnesses. The president thundered that he would not let my name show up next to a ballooning dollar sign. That night, Bezos gathered his war room circle in a windowless Seattle conference hall. Every additional tariff percentage point was costing the firm $350 million a year in logistics and returns alone. Fulfillment managers described pallets stuck in customs temp workers begging for overtime to relabel goods, and a record cancellation forecast for the holiday season. With the duty curve out of control, someone scrawled an extreme option on the whiteboard: unplug from the United States. Dubai suddenly looked like the perfect lifeboat, a 9% corporate tax, cheap energy, gargantuan ports, and Jebel Ali's free zone offering duty-free re-exports to 50 markets. Within weeks the decision was made. Shell entities were registered in the free zone, and blueprints for a new global headquarters were sketched on Gulf sand. Legal teams drafted Project Mirage to transfer patents and software licenses in phases, minimizing exposure to United States tax retaliation. Meanwhile, phones rang off the hook in Washington. An aide leaked the email confirming the move, and Trump erupted, branding Bezos the Judas of American capitalism. But the boomerang had already left the hand of protectionism, speeding back with Amazon's yellow smile stamped on its tip. The world's most powerful logistics company had chosen to vault the tariff wall rather than pay it, showing markets that if Amazon could pack its bags, no titan was truly bound to the flag. Dubai didn't pop onto Amazon's radar by chance. It was the final piece of a logistical and tax puzzle that the company's strategists had been assembling in absolute secrecy for 18 months. On the Persian Gulf coast, the TCOM Free Zone, home to Dubai Internet City, offers a flat 9% corporate tax, a bargain compared with the 21% U.S. federal rate. Within an 8-hour flight lie the main hubs of Europe, Asia, and Africa, while the ports of Jebel Ali and Khalifa unload vessels around the clock with automated cranes that set container-per-minute records. It was, quite literally, a launchpad for a giant intent on ruling global commerce without passing through U.S. customs. Internally, the project was codenamed Operation Dune. It began with the discrete creation of a shell company, Amazon Middle East and North Africa FZ LLC, buried among hundreds of free zone entities. The bland name drew no attention, yet behind it moved London lawyers, Emirati tax advisors, and former trade diplomats. While Trump raged on social media about corporate betrayal, a small team flew incognito to Dubai to purchase 55 acres of desert and negotiate a 15-year fixed-price energy deal with DEWA, the local utility. Today, the models show a 40,000-square-meter Campus 4 glass towers, linked by these Smile Arrow sky bridges, a modular data center cooled by desert air exchangers, and a dome hangar where engineers plan to coordinate drone swarms for last-mile delivery across the Middle East. AWS will add a new MENA region just a stone's throw away, powered by Abu Dhabi solar farms and fiber routes to Marseille and Mumbai, guaranteeing sub-25 millisecond latency to Europe and the subcontinent. The savings were honestly too juicy to ignore. The tax gap alone, from 21% in the United States to 9% in the UAE, meant a $6 billion annual breathing space. But there was more. Dubai waives VAT on re-exports, letting packages leave for over 50 countries without a penny of extra levy. In practice, Amazon is building a Gulf fulfillment hub able to skip Rotterdam or Hamburg bottlenecks and replenish at warp speed emerging markets in North Africa and Eastern Europe. Eager to crown itself the digital Switzerland, the Emirati government also dangled 10-year golden visas for relocated talent. Internal forums already list Indian coders, Egyptian engineers, and Polish logistics managers ready to swap rain for Palm Jumeirah views. To lure families, Amazon struck deals with top British schools and US-branded clinics, guaranteeing first-class education and healthcare. As blueprints took shape, finance teams launched Project Mirage, a surgical calendar to shift patents, software licenses, and intellectual property rights to Gulf entities without triggering IRS penalties. Part of the play is to build cloud services from Dubai and license the Amazon brand back to the United States retailer, which will become merely an operating arm. According to leaked emails, that accounting re-engineering could slash the consolidated tax burden by up to 40% in 2026. The move also plugs into a new multimodal triangle. Containers land at Jebel Ali, cross Arabia to Yanbu on the brand new Saudi Emirati rail corridor, then sail the Mediterranean to Italy or Greece, skipping the Suez Canal if needed and, more importantly, dodging any United States tariff. Talks with Etihad Rail even include an Amazon-only spur, with automated wagons dubbed camel pods. Picture a customer in Warsaw, Lagos, or Casablanca receiving a prime order in 48 hours. The package leaves Dubai's mega hub, hops on a 777 freighter to Addis Ababa, transfers to an e-drone, and lands on the balcony, all without touching United States soil or paying transatlantic duties. That scenario is already laid out in advanced logistics white papers. From a drone render gliding over downtown Dubai, the future headquarters gleams like mirrored steel catching an orange sunrise, a symbol of how Amazon embraced sand and heat to escape the tariff storm. Washington, meanwhile, can only watch the yellow smile fade over the Gulf horizon as Treasury drafts the first revenue loss projections. Most unsettling of all, other multinationals, tempted by the same mix of low taxes, cheap energy, and friction-free connectivity, are quietly sharpening their own exit plans, ready to launch the moment the first package leaves Dubai stamped prime. The news leaked at 6:42 a.m. Washington time on a Tuesday. A classified email signed by the White House Director of Trade Policy landed by mistake in a CNN press aide's inbox. The subject line read, "Amazon HQ relocation confirmed. Immediate response required." Within 20 minutes, the text was rocketing through reporters' signal groups, and by 7:15, the first screaming chyron flashed across the screen. Exclusive: Amazon shifts global headquarters to Dubai. Trump calls emergency meeting. Trump woke to the presidential phone vibrating like a beehive. According to one witness, he threw off the sheets and, still in his robe, demanded a speaker call with his economic team. "Bezos bolts and I find out from TV, where are my advisors?" The Oval Office filled within 15 minutes. The president, eyes bloodshot, right hand pounding the resolute desk, wanted to know whether the move nullified the tax incentives he'd signed 2 years earlier, and above all, how to stop a domino effect. But the market had already delivered its verdict. Nasdaq pre-market opened with Amazon up 4%, traders cheering the tax flight, while UPS and FedEx plunged over 6% on fears of losing their biggest customer. Bloomberg rattled off numbers. If just 5 other tech giants copied the maneuver, the Treasury could forfeit up to $45 billion a year in corporate tax. S&P 500 futures bled red, and within hours 3 investment banks shaved half a point off their 2026 growth forecasts. In the press room, the spokesperson tried a patriotic line. "Companies that profit from the American consumer have a moral duty to pay tax here. but questions flew like shrapnel. Is the White House studying sanctions? Will AWS servers on U.S. soil face retaliation? No answers came, only an awkward hush as reporters live-tweeted every eyebrow twitch. Inside the West Wing, tariff advisors presented a so-called counter-strike plan, slap a 25% special duty on online sales fulfilled from foreign free zones. The budget office slipped in a brutal data point. Passing the cost to consumers would raise the average digital shopping bill by $1,200 a year and bump core inflation by 0.4%. The Treasury Secretary, voice barely above a whisper, warned that hitting Amazon would be, well, shooting ourselves in the foot, right in the middle of an election cycle. Trump, livid, looked for a softer target. He ordered a draft executive order, internally dubbed the Patriot Tech Act, requiring any company relocating its headquarters abroad to give 180 days notice or face punitive re-entry tariffs. The council reminded him such a measure would collide with WTO rules and trigger lawsuits from U.S. shareholders. The president clicked his tongue but didn't back off. If Rome could crucify traitors on the road to Capua, I can hang a tax on them. While lawyers debated the order's legality, Wall Street's closing bell rang at 4 p.m. Amazon ended the day $67 billion richer in market cap. The Dow, by contrast, shed 380 points, dragged down by industrials tied to the company's supply chain. On the evening shows, analysts called it a Chernobyl for protectionist narrative. The tariff policy designed to force multinationals to build in the U.S. had produced the opposite, a fiscal stampede to ultra-competitive jurisdictions. When the president finally turned in, near midnight, the Oval Office floor was strewn with crumpled papers. Witnesses say that before switching off the light, Trump muttered, "If the richest man on the planet can slip away, anyone can." For the first time since launching the tariff war, the White House heard the facade crack. The regulatory boomerang had slammed into the front door, and the Treasury estimated its shrapnel would keep raining down on the domestic economy for months to come.